일단 제가 아직 롤드컵에 와서 져본 적은 없기 때문에 제가 질 때까지는 어떤 예상도 좀 무의미하다고 생각해요.
이변이 나오는 게 뭐 보는 사람들 입장에서 재밌지 않을까요? 다시 한번 스테이플 샌더에서 결승전을 한다니까 그때로 돌아간 느낌도 들 수 있을 것 같아서 저는 좋은 느낌이 든다고 생각해요. 예전에 제가 우승했던 곳인 만큼.
월드 챔피언십에서 제가 져본 적이 없기 때문에 모든 결승전이 다 중요한 것 같아요.
제가 제일 중요할 것 같아요, 이번 결승이. 우리 팀에서. 왜냐면 이제 워낙 잘하는 선수고 제가 꼭 이기거나 아니면 최소 반반 이 정도는 가야 될 것 같고.
이번에 3회 우승을 하면 진짜로 정말 오랫동안 커리어로는 아무도 저보다 높아질 수 없다고 생각하기 때문에 저에게는 약간 소중한 기회고 이 기회를 꼭 잡고 싶습니다.
Face dive forward, time winder plus boomerang equals death, triple for Cubase. They already had the ulti up in time. And lands the javelin. A 3-0 sweep will send Samsung Galaxy to the World Final. SK Telecom T1 backs against the wall, punch their ticket to their third World Final.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our pre-game coverage of the 2016 League of Legends World Championship. We are here at LA Live in the shadow of the Staples Center, which will play host to tonight's clash for the Summoners Cup. As you can see here, beautiful shots of the outdoors of the venue. And earlier, of course, we have Samsung Galaxy in the venue getting ready to go up against SKT and a litany of cosplayers outdoors for the fans to interact with, as well as some pro players. Here you see TSM taking pictures with fans. Hello, everyone. I'm James Dash Patterson here with Mitch Crepo Vorspools, Jake Spawn Tiberi, and Martin DeFicio Lung. And gentlemen, it has been 5 weeks of top-tier competitive play, and it all culminates in this match tonight. How are we feeling? We've made it to the end.
Feeling really good. I think the opening feature was absolutely fantastic. You can really only be hyped for this. We got two of the best teams in the world facing each other, and we're gonna get a really good final.
Yeah, and I think when you have a look at how these teams got here and you know the story of both Samsung and SKT, you feel just how special this match is, especially for the young team coming in and trying to rise to greatness, challenge SKT for that title.
Absolutely. Well, for those of you who are joining us for the first time at Worlds 2016 or are new to League of Legends esports in general, tune into our new viewers stream on Riot Games 2. Freak, Azael, and Zyrene are bringing you a finals primer so you can get up to speed and follow along with the big match. Now, we'll also be putting you in the director's chair with our 360-degree stream where you can switch between full panoramic views of the action inside the arena. Of course, Coca-Cola is putting their own spin on the festivities, throwing viewing parties in 196 cinemas across 16 countries in North America and Europe. We'll be checking in with the fans from around the globe throughout the day. So for more information, hit up CokeWorlds2016.com. Now, it's been a long road to Los Angeles, and after 4 weeks, 3 cities, and 71 Smash Nexuses, just 2 teams remain in the running to be the world's best. We've got the reigning world champions in SK Telecom T1. And here they are looking for their 3rd World Championship. Challenging them for their title is, of course, Korea's Samsung Galaxy, who had only sustained 1 loss all tournament long.
Yeah, 1 loss in the entire tournament, and it's about to triple up for them, very likely so, because SKT, massive favorites. We saw them face off against Rox Tigers, one of the best series League of Legends has offered us in history, and now it's a gargantuan task for Samsung Galaxy.
And that's what makes it so crazy, honestly. We have Samsung, yeah, they won in Season 4. Different lineup, different almost organization, you would say. So many things are changed now for this team. And these new guys, after such a rough 2 years, have now finally made it into Worlds. And then they even make it all the way to the final. I think if they can actually pull off this upset, it would be the greatest run in history of League of Legends.
And this best of 5 is only one aspect of tonight's events. With the night coming to a close, we'll crown our 2016 champions, have a medal ceremony to honor our heroes, a post-game breakdown of all the day's action, and a musical concert to close out the 2016 competitive season. Of course, these players have endured a long road to face off in the finals, but neither of these organizations are strangers to the finals stage.
And I mean, when you have a look at it, you're seeing it on your screen. These guys, SKT victory in 2013, were able to take it down, and FLICKR was so dominant at that stage. A very different meta, jumping around on Assassins. We'll see whether he can do something similar tonight.
Yeah, but a year later, they didn't even make it to Worlds, and that was the Samsung team there claiming victory, especially Mata, kind of solving the Vision equation, forcing us to kind of change the way Vision worked entirely. Sadly, he's no longer in the finals, but Samsung looking for, honestly, a tie. If they win this final here, they're tying SKT in the record of 2 World Championships.
And if SKT win, well, then suddenly you have the greatest organization, the greatest team of all time there. No one can really say they've done the same, because 3 World Championships would be absolutely crazy. And it's funny to see that we're back where it all started. Staples Center, it's where they won in Season 3, and they can do it again now.
It's almost too good to be true, but it would definitely cement the dynasty for that team. Let's go ahead and trace the journey of our finalists who have taken, or rather the journey that they have taken to make it here to Los Angeles. Starting with SK Telecom T1, who are on the brink of cementing their dynasty with a 3rd championship in 4 years.
Yeah, they had a really good group stage. 5-1 they came out. Obviously, right after that, it was a little harder. 3-1 later on. But first of all, the one loss they did take was that one against the Flash Wolves.
Yeah, it certainly was. And when you have a look at this victory for the Flash Wolves, it was all about dragging FLICKR into a side lane, you know, isolating this guy, get the Aurelion Soul there and pick him off, pick him apart. And the Flash Wolves really did do that well.
They did. I mean, something we have seen them do before against FLICKR, especially camp him early with your jungler. Something Samsung maybe can do today. Other games in the groups were fairly simple and fairly easy, honestly, for SKT. C9, IMA, they went down. Quarterfinal as well against RNG. Yes, there were 1 loss in there, but I never really felt like they were super challenged. They looked in control. I know the LPL man next to me is like, no.
Game
RNG were great.
Game 1, RNG were great. The problem is that the consistency isn't there, and that's what we want to see out of Samsung, a young team. But you have to be able to go to the grind in a 5-game series against SKT, because even if they give you a game, the way they gave RNG that first game, I mean, Lupa just took Duke apart. They didn't allow it to happen time and time again.
But let's even look back at that first game. You know, SKT fell behind because Duke obviously didn't play too well. They made some mistakes also in the bottom lane, and yet RNG couldn't close out the game. It was super, super close, even in gold, and then RNG finally gets that Baron because Duke actually fails a teleport. So we're looking a lot at Duke, obviously at the bot lane as well, from that one game specifically. The rest of the games, SKT went full control.
Yeah, and of course, they will be coming to this finals very confident. I mean, they themselves were looking at the Rocks Tigers as the one team that could maybe unseat them. Well, they've already beaten them out in the semifinals.
Yeah, one could say could beat them or should have beaten them either. You know, Rocks was so close to taking that series against SKT. It produced, honestly, fantastic League of Legends action on both sides. Any single fight going slightly different could have completely changed the outcome of that series. And with that in mind, it kind of makes it so that Samsung Galaxy is even up for a bigger task here, because they need to match what Rocks did and more if they want to beat SKT right
And once again, that was an example of a young player just not being able to execute in game 1 only. Peanut had that game in the palm of his hands with great early pathing, had 2 ganks set up, but wasn't able to really execute the way that he normally does. Some nerves, and I want to see whether this Samsung team, who is still quite young, can overcome that on what is the biggest stage in the world.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it all comes down to nerves, honestly, for them. And also if they come in with pressure on their own shoulders, because I don't feel like we're putting a whole lot of pressure on Samsung here. No one really expects them to take down SKT, at least not easily. But if they actually come in here and can just relax and play their own style, that's how they can maybe pull off a few games and potentially even the whole series.
I mean, definitely all the pressure for this matchup is on SKT. But as you can see, when Koma does his pre-game speeches here, they thrive under pressure. They use it as fuel, and they become even stronger. In a game 5, they just become that much, little bit better every single time. It's so hard to beat them in a best of 5, let alone on this stage where they're so comfortable. You know, they've played here before, they've done it all before, they've won 2, they'll win another.
Well, we're building it up very much to be an SKT favored matchup, but let's go ahead and take a look at the opponents in Samsung Galaxy, who may have had a harder challenge in groups, at least on paper, but then a much easier run through the brackets than SKT.
Yeah, and I definitely think this team had the hardest group. They go up against RNG, who turned out to be the best LPL team. They took down TSM in one of the games. TSM still looked like they could throw some punches. However, in saying that, Samsung made short work of so many of these teams. 23-minute victories. This team was on fire.
And that's actually a great point right there, because coming into the tournament, we had this notion that for the longest time, Samsung was an okay early game team, but they excelled from the mid to late game, but really good macro, really good closing. But then they started putting in core JJ, and it all changed.
It definitely did change in the group stage where, as Spawn said, 24-minute victories. It was crazy how fast they could snowball. I think going into the bracket stage, however, we got to see the okay Samsung early game once again. They got challenged a little bit by C9 the first 15-20 minutes. Same by H2K in game 1 and game 2. But Samsung were more than good enough to go even versus teams who went all in for the early game. And that's the key thing to highlight. As soon as we get to mid-game, Samsung just runs away with it.
Yeah, they completely neutralized any attempt of H2K to play their signature, like, let's win the lane, win the game styles. Their drafting was superior. They had answers for everything H2K had to offer them, and honestly, they came in very prepared for the finals. However, they had to reveal some trump cards in the draft.
Yeah, they certainly did. And when you have a look at how that series went and the ability for individual players to step up, I was looking at Ambition in that game number 1 when Yankos is going crazy, camping every single lane out, just playing high pressure style. Ambition was the one that swung mid lane matchup and was really able to exploit Ryu, maybe even put him a little bit on tilt for the rest of that game, because Ryu did not have the series that we expected out of it. And I really am looking forward to that jungler, taking it to what is the 2 junglers on the SKT lineup.
Of course, when we look at these teams historically, though, it seems even more SKT favored for Samsung since the rebuild of the team here. 16-2 in favor of SKT in terms of games within the LCK.
Yeah, but we got to trump history, because if we looked at history between Samsung and KT in the lead up of getting to Worlds, that also was really an astonishing record right here. Samsung have proven rather that they can beat the history, but it'll be hard.
And of course, when we talk about history, we've got to take a look at where Samsung can find an edge in a moment. But first, let's get a closer look at a part of this matchup that goes way back to the start of the game's greats.
The best player to never make Worlds, and now he's in a World Final.
좀 되게 마음이 놓여요. 왜냐면 월드컵에 한 번도 못 나올 정도로 그런 선수가 아니라고 생각을 많이 했거든요.
제가 개인적으로 앰비션 선수도 좋아하는 플레이어 중에 한 명이기 때문에 이번에 월드 챔피언십에 처음으로 진출했다고 들었을 때 좀 축하해 주고픈 마음도 있었고, 이번에 월챔에서 만나면 기분이 좀 색다를 것 같다는 생각을 좀 했어요. 제가 처음 데뷔했을 때는 앰비션 선수가 굉장히 뛰어난 미드 라이너였고, 저도 그때 많이 인정을 했었는데,
그 당시에 프로 데뷔했던 선수들은 잘한다 평가가 있어도 솔직히 저는 프로 입장에서 봤을 때 되게 다 못한다고 생각을 했는데 되게 유일하게 아마추어 선수 중에 진짜 잘하는 것 같다는 생각을 갖고 있었던 선수가 페이커 선수였어요.
Whoa, Ambition! What? Faker just executes Ambition in that mid lane.
어떻게 보면 저희가 저를 포함한 저희 팀이 예전부터 성적을 많이 냈었는데, 어떻게 보면 이런저런 대회에서도 우승을 많이 했었고, 근데 롤드컵 시기만 되면 저희가 좀 슬럼프가 많이 오고, 그리고 SKT는 워낙에 선수층이 좀 두텁다 보니까 시간이 지나면 지날수록 점점 강팀이 됐고, 그 팀은 계속 오르막길을 올라갔던 것 같아요.
They will be the Season 3 World Champions. SKT will be your first ever two-time World Champions.
그 선수는 좀 어떻게 보면 실력적으로 인정받아야 마땅한 선수라고 생각해가지고 그런 질투심은 별로 없었어요.
앰비션 선수는 이번에 저보다 좀 커리어가 길었던 선수임에도 불구하고 이번에 처음 월드 챔피언십이라 굉장히 또 그 선수에게 좀 의미가 큰 월드 챔피언십일 것 같은데.
아쉬웠던 적 많습니다. 만약에 제가 시즌2 롤드컵을 진출만 할 수 있었다면 그냥 경기를 보면서 되게 이거 그냥 진짜 내가 우승할 수 있었을 것 같은데 진짜 나보다 잘하는 선수가 안 보이는데 그러면서 생각을 하다 보니까 경기도 못 보겠더라고요. 좀 마음 아파서. 그렇게 오랫동안 롤드컵에 못 올라오다가 이번에 어쨌든 운도 따랐지만 저희가 열심히 해서 결승까지 올라갔잖아요. 그래서 그동안에 그렇게 힘들었던 게 올해를 위해서 힘들었던 게 아닐까라고 생각하고 있어요.
그때 첫 킬을 복수하기에는 지금 좀 시간이 많이 지나서 별로 앰비션 선수도 마음에 담아두고 있을 것 같진 않은데,
지금은 웃어 넘길 수 있지만 그냥 농담식으로 그렇게 얘기해요. 어떻게 보면 그 당시에 최고 미드가 어떻게 보면 저라고 생각했는데 그런 거 보면은 참 페이커 내가 빨리 키웠다 이런 느낌.
No better place to get a revenge kill than on the World Final stage. And as you can see here, just under 15 minutes remaining to the opening ceremony of the entire event. So we're going to try and get you there with some sweet analysis along the way. But gentlemen, Ambition versus FLICKR, this has, of course, been rooted in quite some history. And here he is finally having made it to, you know, the world stage, Ambition that is, and all the way to the finals. I mean, just that in and of itself has got to feel good.
Of course, and I actually think he deserves way more credit than we almost give him, because not only is he playing well, he's also the leader on this team now. He's the shot caller. He joined this year, and instantly Samsung became a much better macro team, especially mid to late game, because they follow Ambition so often. And I think the fact he's now stepped up his individual play as a jungler as well throughout the entire year, and he's kind of peaking now at the World Championship, it really shows how good of a player he is and how much he deserves to be here right now.
Yeah, and that is, to me, the biggest surprise of this. When Ambition started jungling, he wasn't great. I mean, now when you have a look at him, he was one of the top junglers in the world, maybe along with Score and Peanut. And that is just so impressive. Being able to elevate your game in a separate role, that far into your career is really good.
All right, now let's go ahead and fire through some of the lane matchups. Let's start in the mid lane. That's, of course, a marquee one. We got FLICKR versus Crown. Thoughts on this one, guys?
I mean, champion pick-wise, FLICKR is definitely looking great here, because some of the signature picks that Crown utilizes very well and has no counter in most matchups is like the likes of a Victor, but FLICKR has whipped out the Orianna so many times, and it fits this style that FLICKR plays within SKT.
I definitely think Crown needs to show something different here. We need some new picks from him. We need to see a Syndra. We need to see a Aurelion Sol. Something surprising, because SKT know exactly what he's been playing so far. And as a mid laner, laning-wise, he's a strong laner, but he's not on FLICKR's level, number-wise, but also in-game. And that's where I don't see Samsung get a big advantage, even though they need to keep FLICKR down. And that's where we're looking at Crown and Ambition together.
Right, but when you talk about keeping FLICKR down, SKT, at play style-wise, we're going to take a look at a replay here, and the way that SKT sets up around their mid lane.
Yeah, it's so fantastic to see. Like, look at this replay here, guys. You can see how we have two guys coming to help FLICKR in the mid lane. Both Wolf on Zyra and, of course, Bengi on Olaf. They're going to move in when they've already spotted the jungler, so FLICKR can play aggressive.
Yeah, and FLICKR, he doesn't need to necessarily look for kills. As we roll the clip, we can definitely see that he opens up immediately, you know, with an early Orianna ulti, and he just goes for a poke, really. His objective here is to chunk the opposing mid laner out, just so he can keep him away from the turret, and then once it's noticeable that these other two guys are flanking, it puts so much zone here and so much pressure on that tier 1 tower in the mid lane.
And this is what we always say, you know, you can question Wolf and some of his individual plays, you can question the junglers, but how they play as a unit, this team, and then work towards objectives is just so world class.
Yeah, definitely. So look at the zoning here. There's only one destination left, and that's running it down backwards in the mid lane. And this is also that plays into FLICKR style. So many mid laners coming into World Championship, it was all about roaming. But FLICKR is a player that has one of the largest percentages played above the halfway point in the mid lane. He plays very, very far forward, and that allows him to continuously chip away at the enemy turret.
Yeah, exactly. He spends about 27 to 30% of his time across the mid lane point, just chipping away on the turret, playing very aggressive, because he has the wards from his team, always getting in these deep wards around the Raptor camp. He has, of course, the support from both his support and his jungler coming.
Yeah, he's only beaten in that statistic by Huhi and Ryu. Ryu electing to play very forward-playing champions like a Cassiopeia. The difference is the fact that FLICKR does it on the likes of Orianna, maybe even a Victor. He's playing very aggressively with relatively passive champions, showing the mastery that he has over the mid lane.
Well, and as he squares off against the two-time champion, Crown knows how much his team will rely on his success in the mid lane.
아마 이번 대회에서 아마 제가 제일 중요할 것 같아요, 이번 결승이. 우리 팀에서는. 왜냐면 이제 워낙 잘하는 선수고 SK를 이기려면 이제 미드가 이겨야 된다고 제가 인터뷰에서도 말했었는데, 뭐 실질적으로 그런 팀이라서 제가 꼭 이기거나 아니면 최소 반반 이 정도는 가야 될 것 같고, 그게 워낙 라인전을 떠나서 너무 잘하는 선수라 네, 저도 그만큼 더 잘해야지 이제 네, 미드 라인에서는 네, 승부가 그렇게 될 것 같아요. 네.
And we can just hear from Crown here how much pressure there's on him, because as he talks about here, not only is FLICKR great in the laning phase, but also outside of the laning phase. He's absolutely fantastic in team fights. He knows where to be on the map. And it's really interesting to see how well FLICKR has been able to dominate other mid laners. Like SKT takes mid towers at like 13 minutes, 14 minutes, 15 minutes, super, super early here, especially in the playoffs. And Crown needs to be able to stand toe-to-toe with FLICKR, or that tower is going to die.
All right, well, I got to push us forward. We talk about this mid lane. Help from the jungle could make or break this mid lane matchup. So let's go ahead and turn to Ambition versus both Bengi and Blank.
And you know, when we saw the SKT victory over Rox, it was Bengi coming in and saving that series. However, there are still big question marks over this man because he didn't play the whole season. He's looked shaky at the best of the times. Even in that game one, got subbed out in a victory for the favor of Blank. And I do think that this is one of the areas of the map where Ambition needs to take over.
I definitely agree. This is where Ambition needs to really show how good he is. I think his jungle style, though, doesn't really fit the style that normally beats SKT, because Ambition is a very farm-heavy jungler and not so focused on ganks, at least at Worlds.
But in saying that, he has only played Nidalee and Elise once each. Rest of the games are on the Olaf, on the Rek'Sai, as well as the Skarner, so he is playing more towards that farm style.
But that's actually where I again can see a bit of an issue for Ambition. We haven't seen Lee Sin from him all year long. And what teams have done very often is like ban the Nidalee, pick the Olaf, and then teams like to respond with Lee Sin so you can match some of the aggression early on. He hasn't shown that pick this year. He used to play it in Season 5 quite a lot, so I know he can play it. I saw his solo queue account. He's been practicing it. We need to see him pick that champion. I need to see him be active early on. He has the lowest first blood participation, lowest kill participation early on as a jungler. He needs to be way more active.
Hang on. First, we come into this segment saying Ambition deserves way more praise than we are giving him, and now the Physio, you start like dragging him.
As a shot caller, and also when he is actually part of the fights, he's doing really well. But he's been able to play the farm-heavy style, getting the most farm as a jungler, not the gank style. You need that.
Either way, we're going to need him to step up to get Samsung Galaxy an advantage here against SKT. We got to look at another lane, though, the top lane, because if Samsung Galaxy is going to find another advantage, it might be there with Kuve versus Duke.
And you wonder why Ambition doesn't gank that much. Well, Duke, Kuve, when he gets kills in lane, only has 0.5 person with him. He doesn't even have a whole body. This guy is able to translate. Half a body's there. He's able to translate so much, and 5 out of his 8 kills on top laners have just been solo. This guy isn't really picking for the lane all that much. He's able to take normal neutral matchups as well and just excel at killing the opponent.
And this is where it all ties it together, because we made the point earlier about how FLICKR, when he can roam, actually elects to chip down a turret. Well, his opposing mid laner very often roams, and guess where they're roaming to? It's towards Duke. This guy sometimes has to dodge 1v2 ganks, 1v3 ganks that he's done in the past on the Trundle. Yes, they elect to pick his champions later on, giving him the favorable matchup, but it's under so much pressure in the early game from the members because FLICKR likes playing so much towards that tier 1 tower.
Yeah, and it actually makes Duke's stats look really bad if you look at just his individual stats as a laner, but he's been doing really well on scaling picks, and they like to counter pick for him, get the Echo up there, get the Trundle that can also just take over the late game.
Some of his scaling picks have been bad as well. This guy got solo killed by Looper. Both summoner spells still available.
One game.
Yeah, one game.
I agree.
But, you know, Kuve's doing what in Worlds, what Impact was doing in North America. This guy's on fire at the moment.
Absolutely. I know you look like you're itching to get back in again, but
I'm just saying, the guy just played against Smep and the Rox Tigers, and he didn't get solo killed at all. He actually ended up having just as much impact later on in the game as Smep did. I think Duke is a little bit underrated coming into this because of his bad stats.
And so here's the thing. Let me jump in here, because I think a lot of that could be attributed to where SKT excels as a team. They're willing to sack a lane and they'll win elsewhere.
Yeah.
But Duke isn't necessarily going to do what Kuve does in terms of getting a single lane advantage and doing it by himself. But I'm going to push us forward one more time. I know you guys have a lot to say, but we'll have plenty more time to talk about it. Let's go to the bot lane. We got Bang versus Ruler.
And that's going to be a really tough matchup. Bang can be called maybe the best AD carry in a tournament. Maybe Prey's up there, but definitely with Prey, they are distinctively top 2. Ruler is not in that conversation yet. Yes, he has improved. It's fascinating to watch him in lane. He's not afraid to step forward and trade sometimes, but he also shown that he can get caught off guard and die in a side lane.
Yeah, he makes a lot of rookie mistakes. However, the thing that I like about Ruler is Prey's Ashe was really critical in setting up a lot of kills in the bottom lane on Wolf. And I think that Ruler's Jhin can do a similar thing. It's a lane bully at the same time and does have that utility to follow up on.
Yeah, I think definitely agree on the Jhin point, but also he will play a lot of Ashe here, and he has to, because SKT will go for it very, very early. We've seen some of the clips about the pick and ban phase for them where they talk about first picking the Ashe. Now it's become this S-tier pick, so we're going to see that from Ruler as well. He has to be able to set up plays, because I actually think a lot of the focus from Samsung will be around the bottom side and create these advantages with Ruler and, of course, Core JJ.
Yeah, that's where we bring in their supports as well. Samsung have already shown that they also have adopted that kind of SKT versus Rox-like draft, and they can play the MF support. They know the gravity of a Zyra. Maybe they'll even be a cheesy counter pick to the Zyra in the Lux support that's being played by Samsung. So there's a ton of options there. This bot lane could prove volatile, and I think both side lanes are the lanes to focus on for Samsung.
And with 5 minutes left to the opening ceremony, let's go ahead and hit those last 2 players on each team. They're better halves in the bot lane, as we like to say, with 2 support or no longer support main on the desk here. Core JJ and Wolf, what are we thinking here?
And where Bang only dies once a game, Wolf has stepped up that in a big way for his AD carry, catching a lot of those arrows. But in all seriousness, Wolf kind of changed how the support meta was being played this tournament. He's got a lot of Karma in there, a lot of Desire as well, and he has begun to rise to the occasion. Still makes some silly mistakes, but he should be able to take it to Core JJ in this one.
But Core JJ can surprise him because Wolf has shown when he was playing against that MF pick for the first time, he was not playing the lane correctly. They were playing too far forward, not honestly respecting the danger of that Ashe misfortune combo enough, and he kept dying over and over and over again. You can maybe say in those deaths, there's nothing he could have done because that's a mistake.
Could have flashed some of them.
Could have flashed some of them, or could have not maybe been there and forced a rotation somewhere on the map here. And that's what SKT has shown. They can be surprised in the game.
And I really like what Core JJ brings, like stability, I feel, for the team. He's really good in terms of vision. He has great synergy with Ruler in the bot lane to make sure to have a strong 2v2 lane down there. And that's why, again, they're playing Core JJ, and they're now on this 10 victory winning streak.
All right, so there's clearly a lot of talent across the Rift here. But as we've seen throughout this tournament specifically, and very especially this tournament, success cannot come from just a single winning lane. This is very much a team game. So now let's take SKT, Samsung Galaxy as full 5-man rosters and pit them against each other. What do we arrive at?
And I think what Samsung does better than any team is punish mistakes. And it can be the smallest thing. And SKT has made mistakes. The question is, do they make enough mistakes for Samsung to really explode in that mid game? Because they're good enough to go even in the early game, but can they really get that big advantage in the mid game that we expect out of them?
Yeah, I think actually for SKT, we're going to see a lot of focus on like counter-attacking for them. This replay we're showing here is that SKT, when they actually do fall behind early on, can make some poor decisions. It's very rare they do it. Like, look at this one here where Bang is in the bottom lane, and then they're rushing in for Dragon
It's
fight.
also a double-edged sword here because SKT, when they commit to an objective, they do it so decisively. It's so hard to tell that they're actually not in full force here sometimes, but with the how convincingly they go in a lot of these situations. But if you pull the trigger, if you realize that SKT is overextending, you can punish them very hard. In this particular case, it was a beautiful lane assignment by Smeb, not going to the top lane. He was hiding in the brush, and he won that play.
Exactly, and that's why I want to see this from Samsung here. Focus on the bottom side, get bot lane tower, and then get control around Dragon, because Korean teams, they love to play around Dragons in the mid game. If you can put SKT in a situation where they have to choose between rushing into a fight for an Infernal Drake, or maybe setting up lanes properly, play a little bit safer, that's where Samsung might be able to surprise them. But it was very hard finding a really bad play from SKT because they almost never make bad plays.
There's a couple other plays that we found in the VOD reviews. It's basically when SKT is challenging pink ward vision, sometimes you can get them there as well, especially if you look at how strong Core JJ is in terms of vision. The more information Samsung can get, the more educated their reactions can be. They can maybe surprise SKT and punish them when they go in a little bit too far and want too much at once.
And this team's preparation can't be understated. I mean, going into the gauntlet, they look so good. After group stage, they look fantastic. Really do think that this team prepares as good as, if not better than, every team in the world.
All right, well, there we have it with just 20 seconds left before we get off the stage. Anything you want to tack on here at the end of Fischio?
No, I just agree with the points here. I think SKT look absolutely fantastic when they're playing, you know, at top form, and they are at top form right now. Samsung really needs to show something special to win this one.
All right, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. We will hold off on your predictions for now, but it's time for us to head inside Staples Center for the opening ceremony of the 2016 World Final.